Before we get on out of here for the day, let's go to the calls. Who we got?
Yo, Stephen A. It has been from Massachusetts, and I was wondering, how do you deal with naysayers?
Well, how do I deal with naysayers? That's what they ask. First of all, a vast majority of my time is spent not giving two shits what they think. I could care less about naysayers most of the time. On rare occasions, a naysayer may have a point, and if I agree with them, I own it. I don't live in fear of acknowledging my flaws or my mistakes. I confront them, acknowledge them, and then move beyond it. So I won't be a prisoner to it. But people are going to hate no matter what because most of the time they're not you. And so what happens is that they pay attention to you to try to pull you down because that's their definition of upliftment. And you can't give them the satisfaction. Screw them. You do what you do. Naysayers are going to always exist. Matter of fact, the more you climb, the more naysayers are going to be under you, trying to pull you down. You got to live for it and want it. Period. Let's get to the next caller.
Hey, Stephen A. My name is Christian. I'm from South Carolina. So I saw the other day Brandon Jennings talking about how he thinks James Harden is a better overall player than Dwayne Wade. I was just wondering your take on that, and if you think James Harden had Shaq and LeBron like Dwayne Wade did, do you think he would have more rings than D Wade does, or any at all? Thanks.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the call. Secondly, I don't think it was Brandon Knight or whatever. I think it was somebody else, Jeff Teague, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure that said that about D Wade compared to James Harden. James Harden was a better individual scorer. Averaged over 30 about 4 times in his career, won about 3 scoring titles, won a league MVP, was absolutely sensational offensively, unstoppable one-on-one. Dribbling the ball through his legs, step back threes, all of that. The problem is that you have to take into account leadership. Dwayne Wade won a title with Shaq. Dwayne Wade recruited LeBron and Bosh and got them to come to Miami, and they won titles. And people wanted to come there like Ray Allen and Shane Battier and Mario Chalmers and others, in large part because D Wade was there. He's a leader, not just a player. And you have to have leaders in order to win big. In the case of James Harden, you wanted Dwight Howard, then you didn't want him. You wanted Chris Paul, then you didn't want him. You wanted Russell Westbrook, then you didn't want him. And so when you have that level of inconsistency or sporadicness, and you have a GM like Daryl Morey who does everything but give you a pacifier and a bib because he loves you so much, he lets you get away with everything. You do what you want, when you want, how you want. And rules that apply to everybody else don't apply to you, even to the point where Mike D'Antoni didn't even show James Harden negative plays of himself because of fear that would alienate James Harden. Those kind of things are problematic. And those are the kind of things that get in the way of peeling max effort from the pieces around you to ultimately become champions. D Wade was nothing like that. And that's why D Wade is going into the Hall of Fame this month as a 3-time champion and one of the greatest 2 guards to ever play this game. That's the truth. Next call.
Hey, Stephen A. Marty from Minnesota. Quick question. I believe Sean Payton and Bruce Arians are in the same level as in terms of giving people with race a chance. Do you think the Sean Payton comments were something like directed towards somebody like Eric Bieniemy, as in terms of Bieniemy would have not done that bad of a job? Thanks.
Could be. I think Sean Payton is protective of the culture. And I think that Sean Payton being protective of the culture and seeing what Nathaniel Hackett allowed in Denver last year is what made him be overtly critical of the Denver Broncos as an organization, of Russell Wilson, and of course, Nathaniel Hackett. That's just my personal belief. I think it's one of those situations where, for me, I'm not saying in any way that Sean Payton should have called Nathaniel Hackett out like that. My colleague at ESPN, Ryan Clark, and one of the hosts of the Pivot podcast, does an exceptional job. Love him like a brother. He was saying those were the actions of a very, very small man, Nathaniel Hackett, he was talking about. I'm not saying that I'm talking about Sean Payton. I'm sorry. He was talking about Sean Payton criticizing Nathaniel Hackett. I get it. But I also think we might want to consider the fact that Sean Payton went after Nathaniel Hackett for compromising the culture that exists in the NFL coaching fraternity. There are certain things you don't allow. You don't allow a quarterback to come in and have his own coaches, his own massage therapist, his own, quarterback's coach, his own chef, and all of that stuff on the facilities in the building. You don't allow somebody to run amok and have rules flagrantly not applying to them that are applicable to everybody else. And I think that's what Sean Payton was addressing and attacking Nathaniel Hackett for. That's my personal opinion. I don't know that to be the case. I haven't spoken to Sean Payton about that, but I suspect that's what it was. Next caller.
What's up, Stephen A. Smith? This is Mike from Orange, California.
Go ahead,
Who
man.
you got as your sleeper pick to make the NBA playoffs this year? Much love, Stephen A.
I don't have anybody as my sleeper pick as of yet to make the playoffs. You want to call Dallas a sleeper pick? Fine. I think with Kyrie and Luka Doncic, with a full training camp and season under their belt, they could make the playoffs. I think Minnesota can make the playoffs again. I just don't look at it. I mean, I'm not seeing anybody else right now. No sleeper picks. I think most of the same people you saw in there, with the exception of Dallas, will be back in there next year. I do believe that. But everybody else, I think they are what we think they are. Last caller.
Hey, my name is Todd, man. I'm from Macon, Georgia. I wanted to ask Stephen A. Smith, do you think LeBron receives the hate from the older NBA players because of his accomplishment and his accolades and what they haven't done?
I think LeBron James spent the first part of his career. This is what my honest opinion is. And this is why LeBron James, as phenomenal and great as he is, will never be crowned as the greatest player in my eyes, ever. Here's the reason why. The road to prosperity matters, not just the actual prosperity you achieved. What I'm trying to explain is, when you look at LeBron James, forget the loss in the finals to the San Antonio Spurs when they got swept in 2007. It was a young team. He was relatively young. They were completely overmatched by the San Antonio Spurs. No match whatsoever. We get that part. But if you remember when he lost to the Dallas Mavericks in 2011, I would remind you all that LeBron James folded in the fourth quarter of several games during the NBA Finals. It got to a point where Jason Terry was guarding him in the post, or a Jason Kidd, and he was doing nothing. And there were people who were holding that against him. Here's why it matters. Because when you're comparing somebody against the all-time greats, what they're thinking about is the level of adverse circumstances they went through, not just compared to you, but the fact that they were unassisted by a culture on a come-up which would ultimately uplift you and guide you to the finish line. Their attitude is, if he were playing in our era, how emotionally or mentally warped he appeared to be in the earlier part of his career, we would have seen to it he never overcame that. Y'all are looking at him that he was able to overcome it based on this culture. What we're saying is, if somebody walked into the league against us in our heyday and we felt like we could psych them out and prevent them from maximizing their skill set because mentally and emotionally they were not as hard and as stern as they needed to be, you never would have got to the point where you leapfrog over that and overcame those maladies to become a champion. And that is what they hold him accountable for. Whether right or wrong, I think that's the belief they have. And that is why they don't give LeBron James the love. But there is no excuse for Dr. J to have a list of top 10 players all time and not to have LeBron James on the list. I got him top 2 all time. Some people got him top 3 because they got Kareem ahead of him. How in God's name do you don't have LeBron James as the top 10? Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson, I get it. Karl Malone, I understand. How in God's name do you not have LeBron James ahead of them? Jerry West, love Jerry West, the silhouette. But you lost 8 titles in 9 tries. Elgin Baylor, you never won a title. Oscar Robertson, you got a couple. LeBron's got 4. He's got 4 league MVPs. He's been to finals 10 times. He's 6'9" with a handle and a jump shot and power and a post game. He's been in the league for over 20 years. He's withstood the test of time. How do you not have him in your top 10? That's ridiculous. I would never insult him like that. That would be blasphemous.